Intervals of real numbers. In this module, you will learn about intervals of real numbers. You may already know that real numbers can be represented graphically on a number line. Since real numbers are infinite, the arrows to the left and right of a number line indicate that the numbers extend to negative infinity and positive infinity respectively. The numbers shown on a number line indicate its scale. You can represent numbers like 4 and -2 by a dot on a number line. You can also show sets of numbers on a number line by making dots on the numbers present in the set. Whenever you consider any two numbers on a number line, the gap between the numbers represents an interval. An interval is a set of real numbers that consists of all real numbers between two given numbers and may or may not include the two numbers at both ends. An interval that includes the two numbers at both ends is called a closed interval. The filled circles at the endpoints of the interval indicate that the numbers at both the ends are included in the interval. A closed interval is represented by a square bracket. This notation stands for the closed interval AB. An interval that does not include the two numbers at both ends is called an open interval. The empty circles at the endpoints of the interval indicate that the numbers at both ends are excluded from the interval. An open interval is represented by a parenthesis. This notation stands for the open interval AB. Sometimes, an interval may include the number at its one end and exclude the number at its other end. Such intervals are called half-open intervals. Such intervals may be open on the left or right. When an interval is open on the left and closed on the right, the notation for the interval has a parenthesis on the left and a square bracket on the right. In contrast, when an interval is closed on the left and open on the right, the notation for the interval has a square bracket on the left and a parenthesis on the right. Now, what if you need to represent a set of real numbers greater than or equal to -2? This set is an infinite set, as there are infinite real numbers greater than -2. Such intervals that represent infinite sets are called unbounded intervals. You can represent this interval by writing -2, positive infinity enclosed within a square bracket on the left and a parenthesis on the right. The positive infinity symbol denotes that the interval is unbounded above. If the same unbounded interval does not include -2, then the interval notation changes. It has a parenthesis at both ends. What if you need to represent a set of real numbers less than or equal to -2? This is again an infinite set, as there are infinite numbers less than -2. You can represent this interval by writing negative infinity, comma, -2 enclosed within a parenthesis on the left and a square bracket on the right. The negative infinity symbol denotes that the interval is unbounded below. Can you tell what an interval unbounded from both above and below represent? Well, such an interval represents a set of all real numbers. In this module you have learnt, real numbers can be represented on a number line. An interval is a set of all real numbers between any two real numbers which may or may not include those real numbers. An interval that includes the real numbers at both ends is called a closed interval. A closed interval is denoted by square brackets. An interval that excludes the real numbers at both ends is called an open interval. An open interval is denoted by a parenthesis. An interval that includes the real number at its one end and excludes the real number at the other end is called a half-open interval. Intervals that represent infinite sets are called unbounded intervals. The positive infinity symbol denotes that an interval is unbounded above. The negative infinity symbol denotes that an interval is unbounded below. An interval unbounded from both above and below represents a set of real numbers.